All types of entertainment have problems, and Skyblock is no different. So everyone knows about the problems of scamming and IRL trading, but there's one problem that I think hasn't been addressed at all by the Skyblock developers that really needs changing. But before I go over this problem, please consider subscribing to support the channel. Every subscription helps and gets us closer to YouTube rank, so I appreciate all the support, and back to the video. So before I go into the problem, I'm going to be talking about how I chose this problem. Earlier I mentioned the two problems of scamming and IRL trading, but those two problems can't be directly fixed by the admins. Obviously the admins can try to crack down on cheaters and scammers, but there's no exact way for them to stop this from happening. So for the biggest problem, I've chosen something that the admins can directly fix and that it is their doing. So after considering this, there was two main problems that I was considering as the worst problem in the game. The two problems that I'm talking about are the problems of RNG and the problems of co-ops. So co-ops have a bunch of problems and haven't been updated in a while, so that was why that was considered. And the second was RNG, because there's a lot of RNG and a lot of people have been talking about ways to fix it. But ultimately I ended up picking co-ops because almost everybody knows about the RNG problem, and even though co-op problems have been addressed, it is not as much as the RNG problem. So now that you know that co-ops are a problem, why are they a problem? To get this point across, I'll start by listing the pros of co-ops and then later the cons, so we can weigh them and see why co-ops are actually bad for most players. In my experience, and as far as I know, I believe there are three big pros of being in a co-op. The first one being that you can grind collections really fast. Then the second one being that you can build stuff faster and more effectively than most players. And then finally, you can get your minion slots much faster than most players. But the cons easily outweigh the pros of being in a co-op. First of all, you get less minion slots per player. And then you have to share a bank. And finally, it is much easier to get hacked, and now it's even easier to get wiped. By far the worst con of them all is the con that we have less minion slots per player. So in my 5-player co-op, each of us can only get about 4 minions per player. If you join an island, you get double. It doesn't even have to have any minions crafted. You instantly get more minion slots by just joining an island. So that automatically makes a solo way better for minion slots. You might be thinking, who cares about these minion slots? Once you get endgame, 1 to 2 mil in a day is really not that helpful when you're making hundreds of millions. Well, that's where you're wrong, because all of these minions are extremely helpful into grinding the skills like fishing and mining. These are two of the hardest skills in the game to grind out. So people resort to using minions as a way to passively get them, because they're both the most boring skills to grind as well as the hardest. So having these minions placed down makes it a lot easier to get some passive Minion XP while sacrificing a few coins, and in some cases these are the best money making minions, so almost everyone is using them. So getting this fishing XP and mining XP is really needed for endgame players, and if you're in a co-op, you're getting way less than solos. You might be confused onto why I'm on 30virus's solo profile, but it's basically to show you that usually players who are on solos tend to have a higher mining level. So if we look at his mining level, you can see that it's 37 and he's on a solo. If we then go to Akinsoft, who is also on a solo, as you can see, he has a player who's played in 5 months. You can see that he has a mining level of 42. If we go to the next person, Pigacle, he has a co-op, but they've all been inactive, so he's basically playing on a solo. And you can see he has a mining level of 34, And then we go to the co-op players. So Time Dio, who plays so much and has a bunch of level 50 skills, but he's in a co-op and he has a mining level of 26. And then if we go to Jin, who is his co-op member, you can see that he has a mining level of 25. And then if we go to Menacing Banana, who's also in a very active co-op, you can see that his mining level is only 32. The sharing of banks is the next big issue with Skyblock co-ops, and Palika does a great job of explaining this in his video about why Skyblock co-ops suck, so I really recommend you watching this after this video. But the basic gist of what he says is that 5 solos will have a total bank of 250 million coins, while 1 co-op will only have a total balance of 50 mil, which makes 5 solos way better than 1 co-op of 5. And then interest will be much higher if you are 5 solos, because each solo will get 200k interest. So in total that should equal about let's say 1 mil. So that means you're gonna get 51 mil after interest, while a co-op will only get 250k. So in total they'll get 50 million and 250k. So that's already 2 big issues with being in a co-op versus being 5 solos. Sharing a bank also means that anybody in your co-op can take your money, which leads us to the last issue, which is getting hacked or even getting wiped. The reason getting hacked and getting wiped is so much easier in a co-op is because there's more opportunities. Basically, if you're in a co-op, there's a 5 times higher chance that you'll get hacked, simply because there's more players, and more players means more opportunities of getting hacked. So that is already bad enough, because you can lose so many things from getting hacked, because they can blow up your island or just take all the money from the bank. And then getting wiped is just as bad, because you can lose everything simply because one of your players in your co-op did something bad, something you can't control, which just makes it even worse. And you can basically lose everything in the blink of an eye for something you didn't do, which really just sucks. So what you all want to know is how they can fix it, and I have a few solutions that they can employ. Starting off with the minion problem, the easiest thing they can do to fix this is just make it so that all Minion XP is given to all players in the co-op. I don't really see how this can be abused, and while it doesn't fix the problem of less resources per player, it fixes the main problem, which is the XP. So I'll take what I can get, and I can see how if there's an increase to minion slots, how it can easily be abused. So all I'm hoping for is that you make it so that all Minion XP goes to all players. The solution for the shared banks is a little bit unclear, but I have 2 different solutions. So the first solution is that they just increase the bank limit by 50 mil per player, which is kind of boring, and I don't really know if that will be effective. The second solution, which I prefer, is that they increase the interest per player by maybe 200k per player. So in total, if you have 5 players, you'll get a max interest of 1 mil. I feel like this can kind of make up for the money lost in less minions. And it also helps being in a co-op because you're gonna have much less capacity than most players. But as a bonus, you get a little bit more interest than most players. So I can see how it's an equal trade-off and can be really good for co-ops. The problem of being hacked is a little bit controversial because Hypixel really doesn't have to help you with this, but there is a few ways they can. So for YouTubers and admins and mods, they all have 2FA, which means they can basically never get hacked, which is pretty awesome for them. But for the general public, this is not possible. If they do end up releasing it, they could just give it to MVP++s and it will only be used on co-ops as a way to limit how much it's used, as well as to only give it to dedicated players who are willing to pay. But then, if possible, it will start being rolled out to normal ranks and lower ranks, and basically to everyone at one point. But if none of this is possible, what they can do instead is just introduce a password. So you can put a password on your co-op, which the entire co-op agrees to. So just in case what a hacker gets into your Minecraft account, they then have to hack into a second password, which will allow them to get into the co-op. So this is an easy way for them to basically get around using 2FA, because it basically gives you a second barrier of protection into getting into your Skyblock co-op. A quick thing to incentivize using co-ops is giving a plus 1% bonus per co-op member in your dungeon party. This will equate to plus 1% per co-op member and then max at 5%, because if your entire co-op is in your party, you get an additional 1%. This will not be too broken, but it will incentivize people playing with their co-op, because right now most people, including me, don't play with their co-op because they usually end up playing with the randoms, because they are usually better, because solo players have all the extra resources and the extra minions and a bunch of things that make it easier for them to progress in the game. So that's the basic reasoning into why I think actually promoting playing with their co-ops can be something good. It wouldn't take away from people who don't, but it would add a little bit of a bonus or incentive for co-ops to play together. So that's basically all I've got for the problem. If you know anything else about the problem or any solutions, feel free to put them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to support the channel. Every subscription is appreciated, and goodbye.